When is it time that you schedule the Goodstream, David G? Well, you see, I've got a kind of demented personality type, and I'm just not into scheduling. I'm not into scheduling. If I thought anyone would be awake at 3 a.m., I might stream then. And the next night at 11:45 p.m. I might stream again. I've just got one of those things, those broken personality strings, that's not into scheduling. So those Birkin, not should be broken. I'm gonna stumble out for my words. It's too early for me, guys. No, I'm just kidding. I'm moving to the tropics switched me to a morning person, and I didn't used to be. I used to be like a get up at 8 in the morning person, and now I'm like get up at 6 something in the morning person. Because the tropical cycle is, the sun gets up around 6 and the sun goes night around 6 in the evening. But trying to like pin down a regular time for the Goodstream, nah. It's too hard. I mean, if I tried to do that, what would happen is I would end up skipping a lot. I have to just kind of do it when I have a gap, when I'm tired of working on other stuff. Because otherwise it's not going to happen. Like if I did it at 7 o'clock every evening, I would be missing dinner with the kids. And I might be missing reading books to children, Like the other night, one of my kids said, "Dad, would you read me this book?" And I said, "Sure." So the book is pretty long. It's a really good book. It's a folk tale about Sarah Witcher, a little girl who was lost in the woods of New Hampshire back in the colonial era, and she's lost, and she ends up taking shelter with a bear, and it's just such a great story. So anyhow, I started reading it, and that was like at 8 o'clock at night or something. We ended up reading until about 9:30. Reading to my daughter. It was so good. We got about halfway through the book, and then the next day we didn't get to do it again because she fell asleep on the sofa while I was doing the Goodstream. So then last night we got to read the rest of the story, and sure, one of her brothers wanted to come listen too, but she had to catch him up on the story first, which is really fun to hear a little girl like explain the whole background of the story before they get to where it is. It's interesting when it gets translated through. So I should do, Karen says I should do some in the middle of the night for all your fans on the other side of the world who are currently sleeping. That's a good idea. Northern Thai Garden guy says I need this talk about answered prayer. Well, you bet. So, hey guys. It's nice to see you all. Schedules are hard. And I love to work, but I tend to work on my own schedule. I've had issues with friends that work like regular jobs, and it gets to Saturday and they're like, "Hey, let's go, man. Let's go get some wings." And I'm like, I don't want to get wings because now I'm working in my garden. And I don't even like wings. But, let's hang out. I don't want to hang out. I want to work. That's all I want to do is work. You know what? How I like to hang out? I like to hang out while working. Like doing something. That's fun. If you said, "Hey, we're going to paint the house. Do you want to come over and help me paint?" Yes! Yes, I do. The name of the book, good question. Let me find it. I will find it. It is such a good book. A great book. It is called Sarah Witcher's Story by Elizabeth Yates. And Witcher is spelled... Well, let me write it down for you. Sarah Witcher's Story. It is so good. Classic American. All right, so let's talk about the soul of the diligent. Actual content starts here. Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting Goodstream, this time in the middle of the day. This is the good lunch stream for those of you on Eastern Time, United States. And for those of you on the other side of the world, hopefully it's not too late. This Goodstream was inspired by my Bible reading yesterday. I read this in the book of Proverbs. The soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing. This is Proverbs 13:4. The soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made rich. And I read this, and I thought, yes, we want something for nothing. And there's plenty of good excuses for it, too. I mean, you know how screwed up everything is right now. How come if the Federal Reserve can print trillions of dollars, they still make us file with the IRS? They could print money out of thin air. What do they need our dollars for? Why do we have to file or get fined? They should just get rid of the IRS and print the money directly if they're gonna... I mean, the whole thing's a scam, right? It's a scam. If they could print trillions of dollars, why take ours? Why take taxes at all? They're gonna take it through inflation. Right? That's what I feel like. Why should I pay taxes on anything? You guys just print more. The little bit you let me keep, you won't even let me get any interest on. Why would you have a savings account when a savings account pays 0.1%? And lumber, buying lumber instead, goes up 100% in a year, you know? Seriously. Come on. We're getting cheated so badly. We are getting ripped off. The risk of borrowing money is lower than the risk of saving money, and that's an inverted system. I mean, would you lend money to somebody for like 3% for 30 years? That doesn't even make sense. Something's really screwed up. Inflation's being created here. Why do you think tuition is so expensive? Student loans. Let's give everybody a government-backed loan. Anybody that wants it, a government-backed loan at a low percentage, and see what happens to demand. Well, the people that are borrowing the money then can get into school, and they borrow the money, and then the schools realize that, hey, there's all this money available. Let's raise tuitions. So everybody has to borrow money. Suddenly everybody has to borrow money, and you're not paying for it for your savings. These people that are like, well, when I was young, I worked my way through college delivering pizzas 2 days a week. Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. It's really expensive now. Why is it expensive? There's a bunch of money floating around. Well, let's throw money at it. Let's make everything super, super expensive. And then let's throw more money at it. I mean, it's really nuts. The whole thing doesn't make any sense. It's all busted. The whole thing's busted. Yeah, tuition is expensive because it is being subsidized. So you throw cheap money at it, and suddenly it makes it expensive. Why are houses so expensive? It's because, well, obviously you need to get a loan to buy a house now. Didn't used to be that many people really got a loan to buy a house. Prices of houses were much less. When you start printing money, price of everything goes up. So it's busted. The whole thing's busted. So right now it's like, why would you be diligent? Why would you be diligent? You can't work hard enough to work your way out of the system. Are you gonna get like a middle class job and on a savings account and work your way up to being wealthy? Probably not. The people at the top don't really want you to do that anyways. But Proverbs says, the soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made rich. So the soul of a lazy man, you know these people, right? We all know people like this. I wish I had a boat. So-and-so has a boat. That's not fair. I wish I had a boat. Well, so-and-so may have cheated their way to that boat, in which case when they die, they'll pay for it. Or they're miserable while they're enjoying the boat because of all the people they cheated, depending on how sensitive their conscience is. But they may also have worked for that boat, or they may also have come up with something really smart and managed to sell it for that boat. Now, a lot of times we see things right now and we go, there's no way that CEO is worth $15 bazillion. He's probably not. When banking is a huge percentage of your economy rather than actual real things like making stuff. You can't make computer chips, so we can't get cars shipped. We can't make cars in the United States properly because we can't get the chips from overseas to make the cars, because there's no chip factory anymore, because somebody thought it'd be a great idea to save a bunch of money by shipping that stuff overseas. Well, that's a bad deal. So how do you get around this? Well, you can't. We can't. We can't beat these people. Trying to get the government to take the money away from them to give to us is pretty hopeless. Because, let's face it, the government and the corporations are the same thing at this point. They're both part of the same system. They're two heads of the same system, and they keep going. People on one side will go, the government is so evil and big and bad. And the people on the other side are like, the corporations are so evil and big and bad. And I'm like, wait a minute, the governments are the corporation. These people literally get a job at the Treasury, and then they go to a big private company, and they come back in and they go work for the USDA. I mean, they're like beep, 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 back and forth between so it's just it's a revolving door between companies and the government. They're the same things. So what? The soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing. So we can desire these things to change. We can't really fix them. But sitting around and hoping that somebody else is going to fix the problem is obviously not right either. All you can do is like Voltaire said, tend your own garden. Tend your own garden. The soul of the diligent shall be made rich. And I think this is interesting too, because the soul is an interesting choice of words. A diligent person may become rich. It's a truism. Work hard. If you're smarter, you work harder, you have a firm handshake, you'll make it. You'll get it. You'll get there. You may. You definitely have a much higher chance than the person who sits on the sofa and goes, I wish I had a boat. That guy has a boat. I wish I had a boat. I was in there was a stream the other night, and somebody sent a super chat, right? So somebody sent a super chat, and then somebody else comes into the chat and it's like, I wish someone would send me money. Start your own channel, dude. Start working for it. Give somebody something of value, and they will appreciate you. But if you go and you complain, nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear anybody complain. It doesn't help. It makes you miserable. We could complain. I could complain about the Federal Reserve System the entire day. It doesn't do any good. I could complain about inflation all day. We could have a stream where all I do is complain about inflation for 12 hours, and we run through how the price of everything is going up so much and we can't catch up to it, and it's not fair. Well, it's not fair. The whole thing's screwed up. But what can we do? Produce something of value. If we took the time complaining and you actually did something, that would be cool. I really appreciate handymen. Guys that go around and fix dishwashers. You know? Guys that come over and put a new belt into the washing machine for Mrs. Richardson because Mrs. Richardson doesn't know how to fix it herself, and she pays the guy $100. It's running again, and she can do her laundry. I appreciate plumbers, electricians, people that are improving the life of those around them. And when I was younger, there's a man in our church who I'm still friends with. His name's Kerry. Kerry is a very good electrician, very generous guy, and he's a guy that never stops working. He works really hard. But a percentage of the work he did was for things that would never actually pay him in money. Like, old lady in the church, leak in the roof, part of the walls get ripped out, part of the, the ceiling fan rots out. Somebody says, so-and-so's house is broken. He's like, I'll go stop by there when I'm in between jobs. And he would go stop by there when he was in between jobs and he would fix it. Is he going to charge that old lady? Nah, don't worry about it. No, it's no big deal. It didn't take me any time at all. Dude, this guy lines up contracts with people in mansions down in Miami. And then on his way down there, he's going to go fix Miss Lois's house. You're like, okay, that's valuable. It doesn't just say, you're going to make money. You're going to make money when you work hard. You work hard, you make some money. The soul of the diligent shall be made rich. You could be diligent doing good works. You could be diligent teaching your children. You could quit your job, be a stay-at-home mom, homeschool your children, and that would be good for your soul, not to mention their souls. If you throw yourself into something like that, forget inflation. You're reading to your kids. You're teaching them how to read, It's really kind of cool. And you see the soul of the diligent just doing work by itself, I find to be valuable. I get worried about, gosh, I wonder what's going to break next. The pipeline. That pipeline thing was pretty weird. I didn't like the fact that there were lines outside the gas station. I thought, are we going to see the 1970s over again? I don't remember the 70s, but I've been told, certain license plates, they could go certain days, and you have to go wait in line for 3 hours to get gas. I like the convenience of being able to drive to the next town and buy a chicken feed. But, hey, I can't fix all those things. So, sometimes it's good to just go out to the garden and dig a new bed. Well, you start to feel like, I don't know what to do. Go dig a new bed. Go dig a bed. Go plant some seeds. Bring your kids with you. My grandpa was a very hard worker. He worked exceptionally hard. took care of his family. He was a carpenter, worked on boats. He taught me how to do woodworking when I was little, which I've always appreciated. I don't have this fear of power tools, and I still have all my fingers. Grandpa showed me how to do it. But Grandpa got older, and he got emphysema, and he couldn't breathe very well. He had to have a portable oxygen tank. He couldn't quite get his breath. And he was still lean and wiry, and he had good muscles, but those muscles didn't work like they used to. He couldn't work because he couldn't get the oxygen. So he would pick guys in the church he was thinking of, and he would call them, ask them how their days were going, and encourage them and pray for them. Okay, that's good work. That's a diligent soul. He used to fix things for people. When he retired, he would go around and fix things. He would build things. I remember he made louvered doors for our house, for my mom and dad. Put in a cabinet here, put in a shelf there. He built a display for our church that had all the different flags of the world in it, because we had so many international visitors to the church. We thought in the foyer it would be kind of cool to have the flags of every single nation. And anytime somebody came, we would say, "Where's your flag? Where are you from?" Sri Lanka. Awesome. So he built that for the church. He would do that sort of thing. But when he couldn't work anymore, he would call people on the phone and encourage them. That's work. That's good work. That's God's work. And contrast it. The soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing. That ache of, I could have been somebody. I could have done something. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Napoleon Dynamite. Napoleon Dynamite is not like me at all. I was not like that as a teenager at all. Not at all. Didn't look like that at all. But Napoleon's uncle, who's perpetually reliving his high school football game where he could have had this one great move. That was his whole life. He desired that success as a football player that he never got, and he's reliving that moment forever and ever and ever and ever. I went to a church called Lauderdale Community Church. It is gone now. It was in Fort Lauderdale. It eventually closed up its doors and went away. Unfortunately, it was a good church. Remember when is the lowest form of conversation, Sir Hat says. I would say there's one lower, and that's quoting movies, which I just did. Dang it! Oh! But you can't, the soul of the diligent will be made rich. I don't think there's a really much better investment than investing into people. And part of growing gardens is investing into people. What is a basic need? Food. Food is a basic need. If you grow food, you can meet a basic need. You can be a blessing to somebody. And the food that you grow in your garden is better than anything that can be bought in the store. So, first of all, you're blessing, you're taking care of yourself, which is good. You got your food in the ground. I'll tell you, a good thing for economic uncertainty is knowing how to grow food. Could you, if let's say you can't drive to the store, could you eat from your garden? And how long? That's a really good question. It would be an interesting experiment to see how long we could eat from our gardens. The perennial systems are not in yet. The yams are just getting started. Sweet potatoes just got in the ground. We don't know how the cassava is going to do. We got some potatoes to eat through. I bet you we could eat pretty good for about 2 or 3 weeks on those potatoes. We still have 60 pounds or so. But then we'd run out. And then we'd be like, man, what are we gonna do now? Well, I guess we got yard-long beans, but they're not that filling. You know, it's a good thing to think through. How long could you live on it? It gets a little scary, actually, when you realize how much you actually buy and get from elsewhere. It was way easier in the tropics, I'll tell you that, because you could pull roots year-round anytime you wanted. When I started planting up at the beginning of the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, we were like, wow, we better plant like crazy, and we planted like crazy. We planted lots of cassava, we planted lots of yams, we planted lots of sweet potatoes, and after about 3 or 4 months, we were starting to see serious returns. It's really good. I mean, you miss Cheetos, honestly, but yeah, well, you can't really grow them. I tried planting them, they just rot. So, hey Austin, welcome. Kristen says, Kristen Bunny, that is the cutest name, Kristen. You look like a bunny in your picture too. All right. Kristen with the machete. Kristen says, I pulled my first ever turnips this week, and I have I have lots of potatoes and onions out there. That's the way to do it. See, our ancestors knew that if you cycled through those winter crops and the summer crops, you would always have something to eat. And they were really, really good at keeping things around. We're not so good at keeping things around. But, you miss Cheetos, really. No, I believe that every once in a while, like every couple of months, you should eat a bag of Cheetos. Eat the entire bag. It's for hormesis. Eat an entire bag, beginning to end. Especially the crunchy ones with the kind of little weird oil in them. If you buy the cheaper ones, it's got even more oil in it. Kind of makes your stomach feel weird. Hormesis. Hormesis is deliberately damaging something in your body to make yourself stronger. You don't do it every day. That'll wear you down. You'll look horrible if you eat Cheetos every day. Cheetos are toxic. That's why you only eat them once in a while. It just makes your body strong. Family size. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But I'll tell you what we did find was really, I was really glad we had stocked up on, somebody said salt. Yes, stock up on salt. But what I was glad we had was an abundance of different sauces and seasonings. When you're bringing in a whole bunch of roots, to be able to put ketchup on them is nice. You have to score Fritos and put them in the fridge until they sprout. Scott says our first harvest this year was 31 4-ounce jars worth of spinach baby food for our newborn. It's pretty nice to make your own baby food. It's pretty cool. I think one of the best things for baby food is sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are really good. Our babies always loved mashed up sweet potatoes. We don't do much spinach because of the high amount of oxalic acid in it. It's not the best as you get older in particular, but it's not the best because the oxalic acid can build up in your joints and make you hurt. But I'll tell you that homegrown is going to be way better than anything you can get from the store. Homegrown baby food. Stratify your Cheetos. That's right. Chips and salsa are lovely, but I eat too many. Yep, I do too. That's why I don't eat them very often anymore. I am in the phase. What I try to do is bulk up. I ate more calories than I needed, and I worked out a lot, and I definitely bulked up. And now I am in the cutting phase, so I've been keeping track of everything that I eat. and I cut both carbohydrates and fat lower at the same time. I'm eating a ton of vegetables because we've got so much coming out. There's so much coming in from the garden right now. Like there's a big platter on the island in our kitchen, and it's just loaded with all these green things and tomatoes. I just picked 5 pounds of tomatoes just yesterday. I filled a little basket full of them. Picked a few pounds of beans. We picked. I've been eating these snake gourds, which are very nice. The soul of the diligent shall be made rich. I feel better when I work. Do you feel better when you work? Obviously, it depends on the type of work. I worked in an office job for a while. I'm not suited to an office environment. I didn't like it. I didn't like the bureaucracy. I didn't like the gossip. I didn't like the weird interactions between men and women. That guy's creepy. Dude, that girl's like, whew. You know, this kind of like, it was just like, oh my gosh. You put a bunch of men and women together and you put them in this bizarre artificial environment. And then it's like, to the person who took my sandwich, note, that was not your sandwich. You know. Or I brought in donuts last week, and I think so-and-so ate 3 of them. And they were supposed to be for everyone, but Cheryl didn't get a single donut. You know, it's like, oh my gosh. Oh, it's horrible. It doesn't, that's like, I don't know if that's the kind of work we're supposed to be doing. It's horrible work. It's evil work. Couldn't stand it. We have a meeting. When am I supposed to get my work done? After the meeting. And everybody has to talk at the meeting because everybody's so smart. They've got to tell you their smart ideas about new things that you should be doing. And meanwhile, you can't get done the stuff that you're actually supposed to be doing. For a creative person working in an office, oh, it's terrible. Some people just thrive. Some people thrive on the hive. Being part of a big buzzing hive of people. I don't. I think the type of work that's really satisfying is going out and digging. I like to dig. I like to dig. I find that very satisfying. I like to dig potatoes. I love to, like Scott just said, tearing out a whole garden bed. He says, I feel great when I pull out whole beds of plants. Something satisfying about that. I agree. I love the end of the season where you can clear a bed out and you rake it even again, and you go to the chicken run and you sift out some chicken run dirt for your compost and you layer it over the top. You throw some amendments on there. You put in a cover crop, or you put in some rows of transplants, or you stick in a bunch of bean seeds. Oh my gosh, it's so satisfying. Sometimes I cut down plants that are so productive just so I can plant new ones. I'm tired of that plant. I don't like the way that plant was looking at me. I'm gonna cut him into pieces and feed him to another plant. Hey, I don't like the way he was looking at me. I feel like you got a little problem, you know what I mean? I feel like we got a problem. And when I got a problem, that means you really got a problem. Because I'm the one that's got the machete, see? And you're the one that's taking up space. And I think that space could be better served by someone in the family. In the bean family, if you know what I mean. Right. So, working feels good. Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan sends a super chat. Much appreciated. This stream is officially monetized. Thank you very much. Jason says, I will never work under fluorescent lights again. It's just not natural. Kyle's watching on his lunch break. Hey, Kyle. Jim says, I'm a pastor, another one here, and there's nothing like working in the garden to provide balance to life and being able to produce your own food. It's wonderful. I agree. Man was originally put in a garden. The man and the woman were supposed to tend a garden that God planted. They were made to work. We were made to work. God planted this awesome garden. Here, go live here. It's awesome. It's also a nudist camp. Cool. Go have fun. Cool. Nothing's going to sting you. Nothing's going to bite you. Have a good time. No fire ants. It wasn't until later when the devil invented fire ants, Man started to till the ground. But, I feel like when you're working in the garden and you got your feet on the ground, your hands in the dirt, you're watching things grow, the more plants that you've got around you, or you're walking around, you're making new discoveries every day. I love it. I like to just stick roots and seeds in the ground all over the place. I always have my often, not always, but I often have my pockets full of seeds. I'll go put seeds in my pockets. And then when I'm in the garden, I'm like, here's an open spot. Stick a couple seeds in, and I forget what I've planted. Sometimes I plant things on top of other things. I've had beans and corn show up in the same area. I was like, oh, I must have planted beans there this last week. Then when did I stick the corn? I don't even remember planting the corn. And then you're always discovering stuff. And it keeps the gardening interesting. Because each little corner of the garden is like a different vignette. Something else is happening. How are those marigolds interacting with those collards? That's kind of cool. Ah, the tomato is leaning over the side of the peach. That's kind of cool. I could probably tie tomatoes to the peach and use the peach for a steak. I get double duty out of it, That's really cool. We will continue to have these meetings until we find the cause of the low productivity. Oh my gosh, that is so true. Mike says, hi David, I have a question for you regarding young fruit trees. At what age should you start to train down the branches? Usually right away. Like as soon as you plant them. Now, you want to train the branches while they're still flexible. Like if you're going to make the branches go sideways, something like that, you wait until, usually the way it works is a plant puts out a bit of growth in the spring, and then later in the year it has another growth cycle. Sometimes it'll have 3 growth cycles during the year, 1, 2, 3. But usually that spring one is where you get your main growth for the year. So if you've pruned it to shape before it wakes up, it puts on, it'll put on 3 or 4 feet sometimes. When those branches stop, like they don't have brand new growth at the tips anymore, they're not soft. They stop and they rest for a couple of months and they harden up. When they're hardening up, or they've hardened up before they start putting on new growth, or even as they start to put on new growth, then you bend them down and you train them where they go. Then the new growth is going to start coming in the next cycle and you can train accordingly. But so long as the branches are still pliable, you can pretty much tie them at just about any time. If the branches have gotten too hard where they're really, really stiff and it's like it's going to snap when you bend it a bit and tie it, and then wait a couple of months and you can bend it a little further and tie it, sometimes the wood will adjust. Yeah, Daniel, we should bring manufacturing back to the U.S. The problem is people were chasing cheap profits and using slave labor overseas to make themselves rich. It's terrible. The whole system's a mess. But, you can manufacture locally. I wish there was somebody right around me that was making birdhouses. If I could get like 10 birdhouses that I didn't have to make, I'd buy them from somebody local. If I could find good garden tools that were made locally. I'll tell you, when I was in Indonesia, all the garden tools were made locally. There were guys selling all kinds of tools that they had made themselves. Bamboo handles and leaf springs, and they made their own blades. It was incredible. It was so cool. I bought all these handmade tools and brought them back with me to use. So, Karen, thank you very much. Karen sends a super chat and says, "Seed fund for your fall garden." I appreciate it. I am excited about the fall garden. I'm already thinking. I really like how the terra preta worked out. There's another thing. That was a lot of work to dig that terra preta bed. That was a lot of digging. It took about 4 hours to make maybe a 3 foot by 6 foot or 3 foot by 7 foot trench. But the tomatoes I'm getting out of it are incredible. They look really, really super rich. And I have some other beds that are not particularly productive. I have a bed that I planted garlic in, which is so sad. It's terrible. I think we have another problem too, and that is tree roots. There are all these trees that my landlord did not want removed, and the trees are at the edges and around the gardens. If the trees were not there, the garden beds would be more productive, because tree roots are real sneaky. If you make a fertile space, like I did, right? I dug that trench for the terra preta. There are 2 trees. There's an oak and a magnolia within 15 feet of that bed. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to dig their roots down in there, and they are going to eat all that fertility as much as possible. And it will turn into lush tree growth. And it will strangle out the vegetables that are there. Trees will really lower the production. And I think that we need to do something about that. What I'm thinking of doing is actually digging trenches around the edges of the garden to keep the tree roots from coming through. Just a thought. I'm chewing on it right now. If you can block those tree roots from coming in, it'll make a big, big difference. But that's more work. Yep. Scott says, my cukes and green beans are coming out to make room for new stuff. What do you plant this time of year? Okra? I just planted a bunch of bush beans. I'm hoping they do okay. It depends on how hot it gets. This is my first full year gardening in Alabama. I really don't know. But Karen, I'm going to plant some good seeds. We grew a white eggplant this year that is absolutely delicious. They're not particularly big eggplants. They're like that big, and they're pure white. They're very, very pretty, but man, they have a good flavor. They're so good. We had our first 2 of them come in the other day, and they just are mild and like nutty. There's an intangible taste to eggplant that I can't pin down. And these are better than those big purple ones. But, oh, man, I gotta grow more of those. Lovecat says, 3 years ago this week, my main garden was still in process of digging out Bermuda and ground torching. Feels good to have production in just 3 years. Yeah, Bermuda's a pain. Jim says, work is a creation, ordinance, and a blessing. Absolutely, work is a blessing. It makes your soul feel better. You know how you get a big job done? You start on it. And you keep doing it. You ever know that feeling like, gosh, I don't really want to clean out my garage? Oh, it's such a pain. But then you start working in one corner of it. Like, say there's a workbench in one corner, and you start to clean it up, and you put all the screwdrivers back where they belong, and you put all the bits into their proper places, and you clean it up, and you dust the sawdust away, and you take all the baseball junk that the kids have dumped on top of it, and you move it, and now suddenly you have a little workbench area that works, and you look at it and it's like, that feels so good. And then you're like, you start to get invigorated, and then you're like, I'm gonna work on that shelf next to it. Then you get burned out and you're tired after you work for a while. You go inside, have some coffee, and you go back out and it's like, wow, look at how much I got done already. And then you keep working on it. The trick is to keep working on it and to actually attack it and keep doing it. Starting. The two hardest parts are starting and finishing. If you can just get yourself out to start working on something, it feels good to actually get that first bit done. When I'm digging a bed, man, I'll tell you, it feels so satisfying to look at a brand new 4x8 bed that we just dug. Yes! Look at that thing. That feels good. And when you see one, it's kind of like a day or two later, you forget how much work that first one was, and you say, I'm going to do a second one. And a third one. And the more you do it, the better you feel. Your muscles feel better. Your legs feel better. You start to enjoy the work. You enjoy the work for its own sake. It feels good just to have your muscles working. It doesn't feel good the first day, though. The hardest thing is to get yourself doing it at the beginning. But seeing the progress of previous days, I find to be very, very helpful. But if you don't start, you don't have any progress. And then, of course, finishing. I've known people that start a whole bunch of different projects and never finish any projects. That's not good. You have to have a little bit of strategic thinking for your diligence to pay off. Don't keep starting projects until you've got the previous project working, until it's worked out well. Sometimes it's like you could just start stuff every day and not finish anything. You have to have some strategic thing. I told a friend of mine, I said, look, you got too many things going on. You got to pick one thing. Because he's like, I just got so much stuff going on. There's so many things I keep getting interrupted and this and that and the other thing. I said, no, what you have to do is turn your phone off and say, I'm going to do this thing today for this period of time. And you just do it. That's the only thing you do. Don't get distracted from it. I said, and once you kill a chunk of it, then you start to feel like, I can handle this now. What's terrible is when you start a project and somebody calls you on the phone and you've nailed in like 2 nails and you get on the phone for half an hour and you're like, oh gosh, I need to go get some lunch. You get some lunch and you go back out there and then you get called away to do something else and then it just sits and it's like, what a waste. You get to the end of the day and you feel lousy. You feel stupid. You feel dumb. You feel like you just... Feels really good to just go from one end of a project to like nail it right through. I'm gonna finish that thing, by golly. I was looking today through some of my old videos on what's, to see what did the gardens look like back in January, February, and you can see there's a big difference. The grocery row gardens look incredible now. But that didn't all happen in one day. That happened in a series of days. We built different beds on different weekends. We planted different beds different weekends. It was multiple days of effort over a period of time until it looked amazing. And that diligence now, your past diligence, gives you inertia. Things are actually working. Things are moving. And you can look and go, gosh, I'm so glad I planted that tree. What's terrible, and I see this all the time, what's terrible is when I'm thinking about planting a tree, and I buy this tree and I'm going to plant it, and it sits next to the oak in your yard, and then you move it a little bit and you look at it another day. I got to plant that tree. Stop watching this stream. Go out and plant that tree. You will feel better about your life. That tree then can start moving. Anytime you delay doing a task that, because sometime in the future, it's going to take too long, you just got to keep launching these things into the stream and see where they roll. It's important. And that tree will feed you in the future. You're going to be really glad you planted that tree next year, the year after, the year after. Don't put off doing something that's going to feel so good later when it's producing. There are trees down at the end of this road that were planted the same year that I was born. I asked the owner of their house, I said, when did you plant these trees? Oh, well. Oh, these trees are 40 years old. Wow. They're beautiful. There's so many pears on them. So we got piles of pears and we made pear salsa. There's too many pears to eat. It's great. Great problem. So looking at that tree sitting there in that pot, you just need to launch that tree on its journey by putting it in the ground. Don't delay. Don't think about planting trees. Don't think about digging a garden. And if you haven't read Proverbs, definitely read Proverbs. Proverbs is a book of practical advice. It's in the Bible, Old Testament, written by Most of them are written by Solomon. The soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing. I wish I had a pear tree. I wish I had piles of pears. But the soul of the diligent shall be made rich. My soul feels good when I bring in a basket of pears. My soul feels good watching that tree bloom for the first time. My soul feels good digging a hole and putting that tree in it instead of leaving it underneath that oak sitting there in its pot. You desire and you have nothing because you don't put the work in. And if you don't have anything, if you don't have a space, if you don't have money, if you can't even afford a tree, if you're living in a rental and you can't plant a tree, go plant one somewhere else. Plant one for somebody else. Go encourage somebody else. If you're not healthy enough to go out and dig a hole to plant a tree in, call someone on the phone and encourage them. You can be diligent in being good without doing, work as we think of it with your hands. Like I said, when my grandpa couldn't work with his hands anymore, he would call guys and encourage them and pray for them, and lots of people remember that. How you doing, David? What have you been doing? Oh, I'm working on this, working on that. It's very encouraging. I want to thank Jason for the super chat. Jason says, I'm thinking of crushing and spreading charcoal along with my wood mulch every year. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. It could get inoculated. As that mulch breaks down, it'll probably soak up that fungi as well and work along with it. I think it's a great idea. And it would almost be mimicking what happens with forest fires, too. Layers of organic matter mixed in with layers of char. It's a good idea. I am going to be building a biochar crusher and charger. And this is the kind of thing, I don't like to do mechanical stuff. I don't really like to do builds that much. I just like to go out and dig. Building is kind of a pain for me. I gotta go find all my tools because the kids have scattered them all over the place. Oh, dangy. I gotta go find my tools. Once I actually start building it, I'm gonna enjoy it. But it's like, I'm gonna build it and film it. Oh, it's kind of work. No, it'll be fine. It'll be really cool. When I'm done with it, it's gonna be the most stinking awesome. You are not gonna believe this biochar crusher charger. It's in my mind. It's going to be amazing. I have figured out something I have not seen anyone else do. And I think it's astounding. I think it's brilliant. It needs to be done. So I've bought some of the parts. I'm going to go buy the rest of the parts today and make it happen. And I think it's going to pay for itself over time. But Jason, I think it's a great idea. The wood mulch and the charcoal. Joe sends a super chat. Thank you very much. Sending $5 towards some chicken food for your chicks. Thank you. Have you given them mealworms or black soldier fly larvae? No, I haven't. You know what's really funny is I saw mealworms for sale at Tractor Supply. And I was like, mealworms? That's funny. Mealworms are great for chickens. So I read the side of this bag of mealworms in Tractor Supply, the most American store in the world. Guess what it says? Product of China. There's nobody in the U.S. that's producing mealworms that Tractor Supply could buy from? Ugh. Please, just burn everything down. I don't want Chinese mealworms. I don't want to live in a world where there are Chinese mealworms at Tractor Supply. That is a hissing and a horror and an abomination. No, I've thought about raising mealworms. I've thought about black soldier fly larvae. You know, my friend Elizabeth, whose garden... Did you guys see the video of Elizabeth's garden? Oh, I love her gardens. Speaking of diligent, Elizabeth is the most diligent woman. She is constantly working at that garden and experimenting and doing cool things in it. She's like up with the dawn, and her coffee flying through her garden, broad forking and moving things and digging things and planting things and mulching things and caring for chickens and sifting out soil. And she's just like, she's so intense. She is as crazy a gardener as I am, and maybe more diligent. And her garden looks like it. She's done a beautiful job, and she's always experimenting with new methods. And I mean, it's astounding. It's astounding to see what she does. But all that to say, she is working on making a black soldier fly system to feed her chickens. So I'm going to watch and see how her system works. If anybody has some recommendations for black soldier fly systems you think I should build, please send them to me. I would be interested. That would be a fun build. I don't know how it's going to work, but I like the idea. I like the idea of taking the nasty food scraps and turning it into high protein. It's a good idea. Man, those chickens love those black soldier flies too. And I get a lot of kitchen scraps. We have a lot of people doing some really neat things, and I like to see, how did they do that? All these little backyard inventor types. I'm not much of a backyard inventor. Every once in a while I have a really good idea. Like, I thought that cutting those cattle panels so they leave spikes on the bottom so you can stick those spikes into the ground, and then it balances really well against a single T-post rather than spinning against the T-post or moving. You got those spikes you could step into the ground. I thought that was kind of like, that's pretty smart. That's pretty smart. But, somebody like Herrick Kimball, unbelievable. Crazy. Texas Farmer sends a super chat, says, I want to contribute to your Biochar Crusher Charger. That sounds amazing. I love learning this stuff. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to have to keep track of how much it costs to build this thing. So far, I am $50 in, and I think it's going to cost maybe another $50. It's not too bad. I think I can pull it off for about $100. And then we'll see. Maybe the video will get so many views that it'll pay for itself. And now I've already got $10 off it, so I'm feeling better about it already. Pardon me, I still got a little bit of a cough. Yeah, I got inspired. I had this idea, and I was inspired by something that Herrick Kimball did, and I was like, I know how I could tweak this thing. I have this idea. It's going to be really cool. It's going to be fun. And I mean, it's kind of a pain the way I'm currently doing it, and I'm not crushing it, and I'd like to crush it. I'd like to make it a lot smaller. So KP1390 says, why don't you just put a Terra Preta patch near the trees that are going into the garden beds? Because I don't really want to feed those trees that much. The pear salsa is sweet sour. It's sweet and sour because I have vinegar in it and pears and some sugar. Austin says, I'm going to listen to you while I weed in the garden. Oh, that's cool. At Home with Sherry says, that was a great video on Elizabeth's garden. I applaud her for tackling that clay soil. Yeah, it's a weird combination of like this hard, dry, airless grit that doesn't have stringy clay in it, and then these big patches of completely impenetrable clay. It's weird. Bruce and Bear said the blurred out Z word was great. Dude, I knew it'd be funny. I'm like, I filmed it in the garden. I said, I've got to do something funny. She's had this big, gross cucurbita peppo that we will not name. And I'm like, I'm filming that. I'll find a use for it. And then I had the idea when I was doing it. It was funny that somebody thought that I had like blurred them out because they thought they were, I don't know. Anyhow, whatever. It was funny. I enjoyed it. Rachel says, my friend became a citizen of the U.S. in the ceremony to swearing in. They handed out American flags. that said made in China. I always appreciated that he found that funny and humorous. It's really pathetic. It's so pathetic. The corporate states of America. I mean, of all things, you should at least make your own flag, right? Gypsy says, I've seen some good YouTube videos on raising mealworms and black soldier flies. Homestead Aquarius says, a channel called Madodel in the Philippines has great soldier fly videos. Thank you. I'll look that up. Lovecat says, I want to try the fly maggot hanging bucket chicken feeder thing. You know, I've looked at that and I decided I wasn't going to do it because I didn't want a bunch of carrion flies. If we could do it with black soldier flies, that would be good. I don't want carrion flies if I can help it. Steve says, how fine do you want to crush it? That's a good question. Some people say crush it to a grain of rice size. Other people say crush it into powder. Some people say a combination. So I may put some bigger chunks in and some... I want some powdery chunks. I want some little bitty chunks because I want to make the soil turn black because it makes me feel better to have black soil. Dan says, I have a 5-gallon pail with 1/4-inch holes drilled in it hanging from a tree in my chicken yard. I dump roadkill, fish guts, etc. in there. The maggots drop out through the holes, and the chooks love it. It sounds pretty easy. It's a Crying Shame says, the reptile people are excellent for learning to raise bugs. Oh yeah, good idea. Drew says, why don't you dig a swale and berm system around the garden? Because it's 8,000 square feet. It's just a lot of work. Northern Thai Garden Guy says, David, how's your brother's channel coming along? He is posting regularly. He's taking it seriously, and the Flannel Guys are going to be a successful channel. The Flannel Guys, that's my brother's channel. They've got 220 subscribers now. I know a bunch of you guys jumped over and subscribed. I really appreciate that. Mike M sends a super chat. Thank you very much, Mike. Keep up the good work. I appreciate it very much. Hey, here's another $10 off the Biochar charger. $50-gallon barrels for roadkill deer. My gosh. If you can get black soldier flies in there, they'll wipe out the maggots. Yeah, it's... the black soldier flies seem to like more like rotten melon rinds and stuff like that. Not the... I don't think they're as big as at eating the meat. Let's see here. Northern Thai Garden Guy says, black soldier flies will eat everything you give them, then take their excrement and feed it to worms. You'll have the best vermicompost there is. John says you could tumble it in a concrete mixer with rocks. That's a good idea. Hey, Solibiz. Solibiz says, hola. David from South Florida. Hey, David. My acerola tree flowers are dropping from the tree. I also got your book as a gift for my birthday last month. Hey, congratulations. Happy birthday. Thank you. At Home with Sherry says, are you top dressing with the biochar or mixing it into your soil? I'm just starting, read about the benefits, but haven't used. Just my second year of vegetable gardening. Well, congratulations. I'm glad that you're vegetable gardening. Sherry, that's great. I have done some top dressing with it and then mulched over it or just let it sit in the ground and I turn it in when things get turned and when things get chopped and dropped on top of it. Others I dug into the soil. I think it does better when you dig it into the soil. Eventually I think it'll work its way down, but... Biscuits come from a can. They were put there by a man in a flannel shirt down south. That's good. Dan says, black soldier flies are fine with meat. Just doesn't seem to be a good way to get them started. Coffee grounds are supposed to be a major attractor. Well, that's good because I drink a ton of coffee. Joe says, the video or Goodstream you make when you get the biochar crusher charger will surely be... Aye! Irie. Yeah, man. Hey, Bradley's Adventures. Nice to see you. Work stuff. My brother actually has a job. It's crazy. I laughed at the flannel guy's video with Clint and the kind of heavy guy. And he's like, this thing really works. Unlike my ex. Oh my God. Where did you find the sarcastic fat guy? He needs his own channel. It's terrible. Big, crazy, big fat guy showing you how this thing works. He's sarcastic. He's funny, man. But yeah, the flannel guys got their stump grinder and are putting it to work. So, I also heard that that they've done some farm tours and stuff lately. So we should be seeing some new content there. That'll be fun. My brother is working towards homesteading at this point, and his wife is a very, very good gardener. Some years ago, I gave my brother's wife as a gift. We were talking years ago, like 10 or 15 years ago. I gave her some potted strawberries in a hanging basket as a gift. I was thinking, she could probably grow these. And she still has those strawberries. They're still producing strawberries. She's kept those things alive for years. I've barely kept anything alive for years. It's amazing my children are still alive. It's because I have a wife. She takes care of them. Yeah, assembled in the U.S. skateboard. That's right, Zach. It's ridiculous. I was reading that they were shipping salmon over to China to be processed. Are you kidding me? Oceanbound says, any recommendations for YouTubers in Arizona gardening? No, I don't know of any Arizona gardening channels. I think it's a great idea, though. That's a unique climate. What camera do I use to record my videos? I use a... I will show you. Over the years, I have upgraded to a pretty cool setup. This puppy right here, this is a Canon 80D. Canon 80D, and then this is called a Dead Cat. This goes on a Sennheiser mic that is mounted on the top. This makes a big difference. Some of my old videos, you'll hear like hissing wind noises and stuff. Since I got this thing, that's not a problem anymore. We can record in the wind, which is important because there are breezy times where you're like, oh, it would be great to have a garden video right now, but that's a terrible sound. So I have this lens, which allows me to zoom in and out. This lens comes with the 80D. It's not the prettiest lens. I have a couple of better lenses, but I keep forgetting to put them on here. When I was down in the tropics, I had problems with my lenses quitting on me. Like the connections had issues, and we would get problems with the lenses because the humidity was so high, the electronics would not work right. So this Sennheiser microphone has a connection right here. You can actually use this. You can use this to sing into if you wanted to, because it sounds great, but it's better from back here. It plugs into the side of the camera, and then on the side of the camera, I got this pair of Shure headphones, so you can monitor the audio. So my wife, when she is filming me, she's got the headphones on like this. And another trick that a lot of people don't know, I can do this the right way. First, put the strap around your neck. You want to shoot a better YouTube video? You want it more stable? What you do, you put the camera around your neck like this, and you pull it tight to your neck. So when you film, you move your whole body like this. If you hold it like this, it's too shaky. You're always like this. If you hold it like this, you could get some really smooth shots. Now, it doesn't do very well when you're walking. It still goes like this. But if you want to do a pan across, This makes it way more stable. So just a couple of tricks there. But this is the camera I use. It's a kind of an expensive setup, but I bought it bit by bit. My first camera was bought for me by a reader of my blog. I put up the Get Grafting video for donations. I said, if anybody wants to donate towards my camera, if you enjoy this, if you enjoy my grafting presentation, send a few bucks towards my camera. You know? And I put it up. You could download it for free or for a donation of any amount. So some people just downloaded it for free. Some people donated 10 bucks. And then this one guy comes in, and I said, this is how much I need to raise. I need 1,200 bucks for a camera and a lens if I'm going to do, like, good YouTube. Because I had a cheap, like, a $60 camera. I think it was like $120 when I bought it, like a Nikon Coolpix. And I filmed on it, but I was always having autofocus problems and mic problems and stuff. It was not cool. And you could still do well with a cheap camera if you're careful and cautious. But I put it up and I said, I'm trying to raise 1,200 bucks. This is when I only had maybe 1,000 subscribers to the channel or something. Somebody anonymously donated on my blog the entire amount for the camera and said, go get your camera, man. You can do this. So I'm still thankful to whoever that was that sent the money. That was really, really cool. So, yeah, there is a Steadicam attachment. Rachel's been talking about getting one. I need to look into it. I'm really not a gear guy, but having the right tools for the job makes a big difference. And I'm treating YouTube like it's a serious job now. I have enough subscribers. I have a lot of things to show. I've got lots and lots of garden work that I've done that I think is worth sharing. So I'm gonna do it well. I'm gonna do it as well as I can. Flatjack says I want a Nikon P1000. The Nikons are good cameras. Oceanbound says, anyone dealing with alkaline soil? I had one spot with alkaline soil in my front yard because there was a lime rock road and it was near 7 on the pH scale, and we threw a lot of compost down and it helped. But elemental sulfur helps a lot. Throw down elemental sulfur and compost. And Brian, thank you very much. The Flannel Guys sent a $10 super chat. Thanks, brother. Great live stream. If you guys are not subscribed to the Flannel Guys, that's my brother's channel. He is going to be doing some cool stuff. And he's doing cool stuff now, so. No, it was before Karen. It was pre-Karen. Can you imagine a world before Karen? I wonder what happened to Arch Enema. Arch Enema disappeared. I miss him. For a while, we had Arch Enema, and then I think he got upset, and then disappeared. But he was wickedly funny. That was pre-pandemic. I hope he lived. Anyhow, guys, I am going to call this thing. If you have not read the book of Proverbs, I highly recommend it. It's in the Old Testament. Proverbs 13:4. The soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made rich. When I feel lazy, I have a wife to tell me to knock it off and get back to work. No, I'm just kidding. What are you doing? Don't you know we need money? Well, you guys, thank you. Thank you for the members. Thank you for the super chats. I'm not going to do a... Yeah, Scott, and that shotgun mic is a big help. I'm not going to be doing a stream this evening. I am going to be filming new content this evening. I've got some stuff I want to do and build, and the best light of the day is late afternoon, and I still have to go to the gym, and I have to go shopping for some stuff from my Biochar crusher. So I am going to be taking the rest of this afternoon and evening off of YouTube, hence the early stream. So I hope it wasn't too inconvenient for you guys. If you like the time, let me know. Proverbs 13:4.
So have a great Fort Worth. Yes, Scott, I've been meaning to go over there at some point. I have not made it, but thank you. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. If you can find one task that's been bugging you, write it down, go do it, and then cross it off. It will make your day feel so much better. There's a few things I need to do like that. So I'll catch you all later. And until next time, may your thumbs always be green.